Welcome back to the Empowered Finance Podcast with your host, Sid Misra, Certified Financial Planner. I hope everyone's doing well. Thank you for tuning in. Episode 8 is about Social Security, the program, and a lot about how it works, how your benefits are calculated. The Social Security program is something that affects all of us. We're all taxed to pay for that benefit in that program. A lot of people now, a lot of the baby boomers who are leaving the workforce and retiring are getting into their benefits, are claiming their benefits. And so it's really important for people to understand how the program works, how they can use it to their advantage, how they can get the most out of it. You spent all this time, years and decades paying into the system. How do you get the most out of it? So really the point of this episode is to talk about the program itself. What is it, how it works, how your benefits are calculated, how to maximize your benefits, and one of the more important things is how does it fit into your larger financial picture? What we end up seeing is people who are looking to claim their Social Security benefit are only looking at that benefit, and they're not looking at it as, a small piece of the larger picture. It's a puzzle piece that fits in there, but how does it fit into the larger picture with your investments, with your taxes, with just financial planning in general, retirement planning and income planning? And so I hope that this podcast episode sheds some light on that. It helps you understand a little bit more about the program, and it gives you some insights to help me make a better decision. That's ultimately what I hope this podcast episode does. And so we'll start with what is it? The Social Security program is a federal program. It gives you guaranteed income for life. You cannot outlive your income once you're claiming it. And it's for qualified retirees, those who are disabled. Benefits can also be paid to their children, their spouses, survivors. And again, it's income that you can't outlive. So, if you have, let's say, an income need of, let's say, X, this is going to be a small part of that, and that it's guaranteed for your life, which is great. The history of the program, in 1935, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, signed this into law, and it was a benefit for retired workers. By 1939, though, they realized that the benefits should be paid to spouses to help protect them, survivors and surviving spouses, minor children, right? Obviously, during that time, it was just really men who were working, and so this helped protect the other family members, right? The other beneficiaries, and it really, really helped them not be brought into poverty. I mean, if that main breadwinner passed away, where was that money coming from? And Social Security really, really helped a lot of people and continues to do so. It's not a new concept, and it's not something that's, exclusive to the United States. There are 190 countries around the world that are recognized officially, and 177 of them have some sort of Social Security program. And we're talking about countries from Albania to Zimbabwe, right? A to Z. Most of them offer benefits that are pretty similar to ours. Benefits to retirees, people that have disabilities, they're survivors. And many started before ours. I mean, Germany had their first Social Security law in place in around 1889, Argentina in 1904, Australia in 1908. So these are benefits that, countries as a whole understand. It helps keep people out of poverty. It helps people survive, right, and prevents them from really being in poverty and really struggling. And so it's an important program to have. It's an important program to have funded, and it's an important program to know how it works so that you can get the most out of it. And so how does it work, right? I mean, it seems complicated, but really, what happens is while you're working, you pay your way into the program. There is a tax that is levied on your income, and that tax is 12.4%, and it's split evenly between the employer and the employee. So if you're a W-2 employee, you have a salary from a company. 6.2% of that Social Security tax is being paid by you, 6.2% is being paid by your employer. Now, for those of you that are self-employed, unfortunately, you have to eat that full cost. You are paying the full 12.4%. But it is a benefit that you'll get later on in life, for my generation, hopefully. But for those who have been paying into it for years now and are looking to retire in the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be there for you. How do you qualify, though? Technically, to qualify for the full benefits, you need to accrue 40 credits. And you get 4 credits per year, right? 1 per quarter. And that basically equals 10 years of work. So to get your benefit, you have to have 40 credits there. There are some jobs that you lose eligibility for those who work on railroad jobs and some other jobs that have their own kind of pension plans. They don't contribute to Social Security. They don't pay into the system. They don't get that. But for most people, I mean, that's kind of the exception. For most people, that's kind of the exception, not the rule. But for most people, they are paying into the system and they have access to those benefits. So how are the benefits calculated? There are 2 ways that you calculate your benefits. The first is your earnings record, and the second will be the age at which you apply for those benefits. So, well, what's your earnings record? It's how much you've earned over your working career. And the way it works is Social Security looks at the highest 35 years of your work history. So they're actually going to look back at all of your years of work history. So if you worked at a restaurant, if those kind of starter jobs or maybe entry-level job that you had as like a newbie in a company, from that time until current time, right? They're going to look at all those years. They're going to index your salary and your benefit and your income up with inflation, bringing it into today's dollars. And they will take the highest 35 years of all of those years and use that for their calculation. And basically what they're doing is it's this kind of convoluted math problem. There's obviously some actuary in a windowless government office that came up with this, but basically it calculates using that highest 35 years your PIA, or primary insurance amount. And that is the amount that you would get per month at full retirement age, right? So that's how they calculate your benefits based off of work history. They look at all of your work history, index it up for inflation into today's dollars, right? Take the highest 35 years, do all this crazy math, and come up with your monthly benefit that you would get every month at full retirement age, right? And that is your PIA, or primary insurance amount. That's the first way that they look at it, right? Or the first way that they calculate your benefits. The second way is the age at which you apply for benefits. So the earliest you can apply technically right now is 62. There are rules for disabled workers or age 50, but that's not your full retirement age. 62 is not your full retirement age. It is the earliest that you can apply. But if you apply earlier than full retirement age, you will get a number that is lower than your PIA. It will be a reduced amount, and that reduced amount is locked in for life. Full retirement age used to be 65 for everyone born before 1943. It was increased to 66 for people born between 1943 and 1954. And it is 67 for those born between 1960 and later, right? And then anybody in between 1954 and 1960 is 66 plus 2 months for every year. So if you were born in 1955, your full retirement age is 66 and 2 months. If you were born in 1956, it's 66 and 4 months, right? Up until 1960, and then full retirement age for everyone born in 1960 or later is 67. So again, going back to the previous point, if you claim before full retirement age, because you technically can, you can claim as early as 62, you're going to have a reduction in benefits. And those reduction in benefits, depending on full retirement age, depending on when you claim, can be as high as 30%. And again, those are permanent reductions. So once you claim before full retirement age, whatever that reduction is locked in for life. Now, what about waiting? What about waiting past full retirement age? Well, you actually get a bonus. You get a bonus of 8% per year for every year past full retirement age until age 70. So there's no benefit to delaying Social Security past age 70. There are no delayed credits that get added on, but you do get 8% per year every year after full retirement age until age 70. So for example, if your full retirement age is 66 and you wait until age 70 to claim, you get 8% per year. That means your benefits will be 132% of your PIA, right? If your full retirement age is 67 and you wait until 70, it's going to be 124% of your PIA. So you get a benefit for delaying it, for waiting. There is really no guarantee out there that gives you an 8% increase like that. And it's interesting that the Social Security Administration has offered that, but it's a way to have people delay their benefits and get a little bit of a bonus, which is great. So the 2 points here is claim early, you get a penalty. You delay claiming, and you get a bonus, right? So how, just as a quick recap, how do you calculate your benefits? They look at your earnings record, the highest 35 years, index for inflation, do the math equation, and come up with your PIA at full retirement age. And then when you claim your benefits, dictates how much of that will be paid out. If you claim before full retirement age, it's a reduction in benefits up to 30%. And if you wait past full retirement age until age 70, you can get an 8% increase up until age 70, right? And so those are two pieces of Social Security that some people know, maybe they've heard of it, but they don't fully understand how that works, right? And so now the question becomes, well, now that I know that, when do I claim? And here's kind of where you get into a lot of trouble, because if you ask people when they claim Social Security and why, you'll get a ton of different answers. You'll get different advice from friends and family. My cousin Vinny told me to claim as soon as possible because of whatever reason. Aunt Linda told me not to wait and to get that money now. Here's the thing that people need to understand. You need to make a decision on when to claim based on the context of your finances and what you need, not what anybody else says, not what your friends and family say, because most of those people, 99% of them, don't have an understanding of how this program works fully, and two, they most likely don't have an understanding of your finances and your needs, right? Context matters, and your specific context absolutely matters when you make this decision, because you're locking it in for life, and a reduction in benefits can be tens of thousands of dollars that you miss out on, hundreds of thousands of dollars, if you have a long life, because you decided to claim early based on the advice of someone who's not a professional and who doesn't understand your finances. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about your claiming strategy. It has to be within the context of my finances. And what do I mean by that, right? What do you need to consider? Well, what are your income needs? Is there an actual need right now for you to claim Social Security? We know clients who have family members that have claimed that are still working and that don't need the income, but they just claimed because they thought the government's going to run out of money. Or, they claim just for the heck of it because someone told them. Do you actually need the income? If not, then why are you claiming? If you do, then yeah, there may be a benefit to doing that, and you should figure that out. Another thing to consider is your health status. Are you healthy? Do you have a long life expectancy, right? Are you healthy or are you sick? Life expectancy wise, do you have a history of long life expectancy and longevity in your family? or do you not, right? Those things are going to drive the decision-making process of claiming early or claiming late and delaying your benefits. Are you going to be working? If you're working and earning an income, what's the point of claiming it? And most people don't realize that, there are penalties for claiming early. You may have some of your benefits reduced and withheld for claiming early and then working as well, right? Earning above a certain amount. And the last one I want to talk about that never gets talked about is the needs of your survivors. If you are a couple, if you have a spouse, you have to think of Social Security in the context of your relationship, of your marriage, of your, your total financial picture. What you do and what you claim is going to have an impact on your spouse, and there are claiming strategies in place to help maximize the income. There are things that you can do to help your spouse, but unfortunately what we see is a lot of people just making a decision based on their own needs or their own kind of desire without taking their spouse into account, taking possible survivors into account. So those are the things that you want to consider, right? You have to ask yourself these questions. You have to figure this out. You can't just make a decision without doing your due diligence and understanding why you're doing that. So when I talked about, just now I talked about, working while claiming, there is an annual earnings test. And it's not very high. It's about $18,000 and change. If you earn above that amount and you claim your benefits before full retirement age, some of your benefits may get withheld, right? They're just not going to pay them out. You'll get them later when you reach full retirement age, but you will have, one, effectively locked in a lower benefit for your life, and two, those benefits may be withheld and you may not even get them at that time. So you have to think about that, right? You'll get that later at full retirement age, but if you're claiming early, you obviously want to get that money now. You may not, right? Don't forget about taxes either. That's second point that I want to bring up here. Don't forget about taxes, because unfortunately your Social Security benefits are subject or may be subject to taxes, right? You were taxed to pay for the program, and now Uncle Sam is saying, they may be subject to taxes, your benefits themselves. There's a thing called provisional income. And your provisional income is your adjusted gross income, your AGI, plus 1/2 of your Social Security benefit, plus any tax-exempt interest. So that includes municipal bonds, right? Municipal bonds, you're not paying taxes on them because they're tax-exempt, but they actually count towards this. And so provisional income, again, is your AGI plus 1/2 of your Social Security benefit, plus any tax-exempt interest. If your provisional income is above a certain amount, and it's different for if you're a single filer, if you're filing as a married couple, under a certain amount, none of your benefit is subject to taxes. Between a certain amount, up to 50% of your benefit is taxable. And then over a certain amount, again, for single filers or for married filers filing jointly, up to 85% of your benefit is subject to taxes. And keep in mind, this is just federal taxes, right? Some states assess a state tax on your benefits, and that's on top of the federal taxes I just mentioned. So you have to account for taxes, understand, your state may charge you state taxes on Social Security, and there's provisional income, that counts towards how much of your benefit is going to be taxed. You have to keep that in mind, because you may be on the hook to pay Uncle Sam that money. The third important note I want to bring up is Medicare. So Medicare is the government-run healthcare for those that are 65 and older. If you're 65 and older and you're not claiming Social Security and you have Medicare, you're basically, writing them a check, or you have it auto-debited your premium payments, right? Your Part B premiums for Medicare are just deducted, right? But if you are receiving Social Security, those Part B premiums will automatically be taken out from Social Security. And so most people don't realize that if you have a Social Security benefit of, let's say, $2,000 a month, your Part B premiums for Medicare will come out of that and reduce those benefits. And so an important point to note, we're just talking about, the percentage of what that premium would be. Claiming early and having a reduced benefit means that that Part B premium represents a larger bite that gets taken out of your benefit. If you can wait until age 70 possibly, where you have your 132% or 124% increase, that Part B premium that comes out for Medicare is going to be a smaller chunk. And so just another thing to consider that most people, the average person, your uncle and aunt, your friends, grandparents, parents, don't understand about Social Security. So how do you maximize your benefit? Because again, you've spent decades paying into the system, paying the tax, 6.2% on yours, or if you're self-employed, the full 12.4%. How do you maximize it? So again, we got to think about what the benefit is based off of. It's based on, one, your earnings record. Is there a way to improve that? So here's what I want everyone to do. I want you to go to ssa.gov/myaccount, right? This is where you log in, you register and you log in, and you can see your Social Security statement. It'll tell you what your full retirement age is, and based on your current work record, it will tell you how much your PIA is, your primary insurance amount, the number that you would get every month at full retirement age. Take a look at that statement and examine your work history, right? Because it has all the years and all the income that you've earned for those years. Make sure it's accurate, number one, right? Are the numbers accurate? Do you remember getting paid that much, or was it a different amount? Sometimes employers send the wrong information. There's an issue with that. It doesn't get reported correctly. Going through and just doing a quick glance through and check is a great way to make sure it's accurate. Do you have any missing years? Remember, Social Security takes into account the highest 35 years, and so if you have missing years in there, you want to continue to working to get the 35 high years of work, right? You have to make sure and just take a look and see, do you have that there? Should you be working longer to remove lower earning years that you may have in the beginning of your career? Can you work longer to remove 0 years, right? Because think about it, if it's averaging the highest 35 years, a 0 is really going to affect you negatively. And so can you continue to work to remove those 0 years? Can you continue to work to remove those lower earning years as well? Taking a look at that statement too, you can also see how much you've made over the years. As a financial advisor, I think it's an interesting exercise. It may be a little scary to do, but just compare that amount of how much you've earned over the years to how much you've saved and invested, right? Is that number higher or lower than you thought? I think for most people, it's probably lower, right? They have not invested or saved and invested as much as they thought. We tend to spend more than we realize. And so I think it's important just to take a look at that, have an understanding of all the factors that go into your Social Security benefit and the decision that's going to be made, and understand, check my work history out. Can I remove some lower earning years or 0 years, and is it accurate? Is all the information there as well? And then as a side, like I just said, compare it to how much you've saved and invested, and just understand that maybe you can make up for some lost time by saving and investing some more as well outside of this. I would also recommend, obviously Social Security is something that you're in your 60s and you're thinking about, you're going to claim. You're probably thinking about this decision in your 50s or maybe your 60s. Regardless of your age though, it is important to go to that website, ssa.gov/mystatement, and register. I did it myself. I'm 34 years old. I've told my sister, I've told my friends. Registering does a couple of things for you. One, it secures your account, okay? When you register, you secure your account. It's now tied to you. you have the security questions and all of that. It prevents somebody else from creating an account in your name and using your social and having access to that. If someone did that before you had the option to do that or the ability to do that, it'll be very, very difficult to go back and to the Social Security Administration and try to correct that. So by pre-registering beforehand, just getting it done out of the way and securing it, you're really securing your information, you're securing your account, and making sure that it's going to be just for you. It's also a good way to keep your account info up to date, your address, your phone number, email. If there's direct deposit info that you can put in there, we just saw, obviously last year with the CARES Act during COVID, stimuluses and things like that were paid out. Even your, your tax refunds and stuff like that. If that information is there, it allows for quick receipt of that, and it makes it easier for the government to send you that money. So setting up an account today helps secure your future, and that's not just for pre-retirees. That should be for everyone. 18 and older, I would imagine. Just log in there, secure it, and make sure it's yours. All right, so the second part, right? So we talked about looking at your earnings record to maximize your benefit. Like we talked about previously, the other thing that factors into how much you're going to get is when you claim. And here's the second thing, right? When you want to maximize your benefit, you have to claim at the optimal time. You have to consider, like we spoke about before, your income needs now and in the future, right? And in a more abstract sense, do you know your number? Do you know how much you need to live the life that you want in retirement? That is going to factor into how much Social Security you need and how much it can help you, and then where you get the other money from. But just think about that in the abstract. What is your number and how much you actually need now and in the future? You're also going to consider your life expectancy and your health status, and the life expectancy and health of your spouse as well. Again, most people don't consider that, and they make a decision based on only their need or their information and their desire to have a benefit without thinking about and considering the needs of their spouse. And it's not just about, waiting to claim, full retirement age or waiting until past that so you get the 8% increase. It's about coordinating spousal benefits, right? You want to be able to maximize income for both of you while alive, and then maximize the income for the survivor after one spouse passes away. There is a stat out there that said something like 70 to 80% of couples have at least one member of that couple living until age 90. And so if you can maximize that income for the survivor, that's really, really going to help them out. Doing this and considering it now is going to have profound effects and impacts for you later on. Right? So let's talk about coordinating those benefits, right? While alive, and most people don't realize this, your spouse is entitled to receive up to 50% of your benefit, right? Even if they haven't worked, they can get up to 50% of the spouse's Social Security benefit. So let's say, for example, John and Jane Doe. Jane's working and she makes $2,000 a month, but John's not working. John can get a spousal benefit and get $1,000 a month, up to $1,000 a month. Now, if that other spouse has its own or their own work history and their own work record that they paid into the system, they're going to either get that benefit, right, their own benefit, their own Social Security benefit, or the spousal benefit, which is the 50%, whichever number is higher. So it's either your own benefit or the spousal benefit, whichever is higher, which I think is great, right? You're going to get the higher of that amount, but it's something that most people don't consider and don't take into account. You can apply for these benefits if you've been married for at least 1 year. You can also apply if you've been divorced for at least 2 years and the marriage has lasted longer than 10 years. So if you want to get a little bit of revenge on your ex, you can apply for the divorced spouse benefits as well. And I'll talk a little bit about that later on in this episode. So to be eligible, the spouse that you're claiming on, their record, right, to get 50%, they have to have claimed for benefits already. They have to be receiving Social Security for you to claim a spousal benefit on them. And just like regular benefits, when you claim early, it's going to lead to a reduction in payments. So understanding the spousal benefits is going to allow us to coordinate them, right? How do you actually coordinate it? Well, depending on factors like, let's say, age and income need, longevity, etc., you can do one of the following, right? If only one spouse is working, depending on your income need, if you don't need income right now, right, whenever they claim the other spouse gets 50% of their benefit, it may make sense to wait till full retirement age or past that, right? You delay on your own work record and on your own benefit, you get a higher amount. And that also means that your spouse is entitled to a higher amount, 50%, right? And so that is something that you can do to coordinate the benefits. If both spouses are working, right, and there is an income need now, maybe one spouse claims now, the lower earning spouse, and the higher earning spouse can wait later, or they both claim at the same time, right? And those are some hybrid strategies in there, mixing and matching depending on what the need is and coordinating between both spouses. Again, this is something that most people don't consider and don't think about. They're just claiming based on their own record and they're not taking their spouse into consideration. And I want you to remember that. I want you, if you're listening to this, to consider coordinating with your spouse to get the most that you can out of this program that you've paid into. Now, what about when a spouse dies? I mean, that's really when you start to see huge benefits about coordinating. And the reason is, when a spouse passes away that has their work history and their Social Security record, the surviving spouse is allowed to step in and start taking the deceased spouse's benefit, right? So spouse A earns a ton of money, has a good Social Security benefit available. Spouse B, let's say, hasn't worked. Obviously they could take 50% of the spouse's benefit, but if spouse A passes away, spouse B is allowed to step into their benefits, right? That benefit can be significantly higher if you did proper planning beforehand. If spouse A was able to delay their benefits, think about what that surviving spouse gets to step into. And so, again, when you're doing Social Security planning, think about how you can maximize the survivor's benefits, right? And I'm going to give a quick example here. Jack and Jill again, right? Let's say Jack claims his benefit at age 70 and it's $3,000 per month. Jill has worked as well. Her benefit at full retirement age is $1,000 a month, right? If Jack passes, Jill can step into his benefit and be bumped up to $3,000 a month automatically, right? That's why you want to coordinate. That's why you want to have a plan in place, and you don't want to just wing this. You don't want to just make a decision willy-nilly without actually doing your due diligence. And so that benefit is going to depend on when the deceased spouse claimed their benefit and when the survivor claims that benefit, right? Again, you claim early, it's going to be reduced. You wait until full retirement age, you get the full PIA. But there are those moving parts there. Now the rules for this: you must have been married for at least 9 months at the date of death, unless it was an accident. There's no benefit if the widow or the widower remarries before age 60, unless that marriage ends. And divorced spouse survivor, the marriage has to have lasted for at least 10 years minimum, right? So if you were divorced from your spouse and that spouse passes away, you can claim a divorced spouse survivor benefit, but that marriage has to have lasted at least 10 years. So what I want, we went over a lot in here, and if you need to, go back and re-listen to it. But for couples, right, you have to make your claiming decision together as a couple. You're married, you have a spouse. This is not an individual decision, this is a decision for the couple. Take advantage of the spousal benefits as the rules allow, plan for the surviving spouse's income, and again, integrate Social Security into the rest of your financial plan. How does it fit into the overall financial picture? How does it fit into what your number is, how much you need, right? Because Social Security is not going to be everything. It is not going to be enough. So what number is it going to provide you? What number do you need? And then outside of that, how do you bridge the gap? And that's why I'm talking about integrating it into the rest of your financial plan. If you're able to coordinate, then you can maximize Social Security and you don't need as much from outside sources. So as a quick recap here, because we have covered a lot, we talked about what Social Security is. It's a pension program that you can't outlive. You get a penalty for claiming early, but a benefit or bonus for claiming late. It includes a benefit for your survivors as well. Couples should always look to maximize the higher earner's benefit for the surviving spouse's sake. And if you're widowed or divorced, you may be eligible for benefits that can increase your monthly checks. And so I think it's important for you all to remember that, right? Those are key points to remember. And like I mentioned before, Social Security fitting into your larger financial plan, how does it fit in with, your pension if you're lucky enough to have one, your IRAs and 401ks, your investment portfolio? How does it fit in with your work plans? Do you expect to continue to work? Are you going to be forced into retirement early? These are the things that you need to be considering before making a decision. And unfortunately, most people don't think about any of this stuff. They just claim and get a check. So if you're looking for help for Social Security, who can you talk to? The SSA program, the personnel, Social Security Administration personnel, at your local office, you can call them, you can go in possibly, I don't know what the rules are with COVID, maybe you can set an appointment, but they can help you estimate benefits, what your benefit would be at full retirement age. They can tell you what you're entitled to if you claimed right now. They are a good resource to understand, can I get the widow benefit? If you have that situation, you can call them and tell them that, and they can look and see what that situation is. What they can't do is they can't project future benefits through scenario planning, right? Talking about how you coordinate with your spouse, what that would look like, and they can't come up with strategies that factor into your whole financial picture. They have a limited understanding or ability to do that. You want to make sure that if you're seeking help, you find a professional that can look at Social Security as a piece of the larger financial puzzle, right? Speak to a trusted financial professional, a fiduciary that's going to understand that and going to give you proper advice that takes into account all of the things that we discussed. So this is, how Social Security works kind of from, I don't want to say a 30,000 foot overview, but this is like a macro look at how the program works. There are nuances in there. There are little things that you have to understand that, come up on a case-by-case basis. And that's why talking to a professional is going to be important. Again, context matters, and your context, your specific context is going to matter. Talk to someone, if you're looking for help, that understands that and is going to look at the entire picture. Now, because I'm 34 years old, I'm pretty young, I wanted to end by just quickly talking about, talking to, my generation. Will Social Security be there? That's a tough question to answer. I don't know. There are, studies, actuarial studies that say the program is going to be depleted in certain years, and COVID has exacerbated that because more people have left the workforce and are claiming. It may be there. It may not be there in a meaningful way. It may not look like the current program right now. And I think intuitively a lot of my generation understands that. Transamerica did a survey of over 600 millennials in the fourth quarter of 2019. This was even before COVID, so I'm sure this number is higher. 3/4 of them, 75%, said that they don't believe Social Security will be there when they retire. Right? And this is the generation that was born between 1981 and 1997. So they're 24 and 40. this year in between 24 and 40 this year in 2021. And that's a sad thing to think about, right? You're paying into a system that may not be there. I think what's important for that generation, this generation, my generation, to understand is you got to focus on taking care of yourself and not relying on someone else, that someone else being the government, to take care of your retirement needs. We can talk about the fairness of it. We can talk about how it stinks that it may not be there, but that's the reality of the situation. And so no one is going to come to save you. You have to empower yourself and to own your future, right? To fund your own retirement, to be able to own your time and own your life, right? The goal is, if Social Security is there in any sort of way, it's extra. It's icing on the cake. It's something that you can have fun with or donate or do whatever. But the point is, 99% of your needs have been taken care of because you yourself have come up with a plan and have done the work to do that. Again, I don't know what it will look like. I don't know how we will figure out the funding issues. So my generation, yeah, we're kind of screwed in that regard. But for everybody else who's 50 plus, who has paid into the system for years, you have to take into account everything that I discussed during this podcast. Go back and re-listen to it, talk to a professional, figure out the best course of action for you and your situation. And that may be you as a single person, maybe divorced, a surviving spouse, whatever it may be, or both couples being alive. How do you maximize your benefit? Please do not take any advice from friends and family who don't understand how the program works and don't understand your context, right? This is a lot of money. You've paid into it over many, many years. You deserve to get as much out of it as possible. Thank you for tuning in to this episode where we discuss Social Security. I hope it was beneficial. I hope you got some good value out of it and you understand how the program works a little bit better. Thank you so much for tuning in and your support. I really appreciate it. Stay tuned for the next episode. Thank you.